some good shows we haven't planned it before, but I don't know if that was. It's live. What are you doing over there?
I'm making sure we're both.
We're fine. Right. Don't worry about it.
All right.
So I've been to a couple of different Walmarts before, as I said beforehand, and it's true that most of them are exactly what you'd expect, but some of them are just the locals. I think it depends on like where it's located. So like the ones that I was in one like outside of Calexico, near the border down there.
Yeah.
And the people that were inside the Walmart were just like the regular residents. And then I was in another one that was off the 99 somewhere, I think like outside of Fresno. And there it was very similar to just the people who lived around there. Yeah. Whereas in Los Angeles, you're going to be like, I didn't know these people lived here.
Yeah,
you know?
I had never seen anything like that in this Walmart in Burbank. Yeah.
Because it's exactly what you'd see on TV. All of these sort of depictions that you'd expect to see from the Walmart. You know,
Tallahassee.
Yeah, the overweight woman with umpteen kids and like a thick Southern drawl, and you're like.
It really was very, very well. It was that, but you're right. I didn't speak to anyone because I hightailed it out of there. But they did seem to be. It did have a Southern feeling.
You're just too high class for that. Oh, dear Lord.
I wanted to see what a Walmart was like, so I went in, and even though it was in Burbank, I really might as well have been in Kentucky.
What it is it's you don't know this, but it's a big studio lot, and so whenever they want to tape like the South, they just go down there in order to use it. You know, they use different parts of the city to tape different parts of the world, right? And then they use this thing whenever they want to have like the French Riviera, like whenever they want to have Florida. You know, they'll go out to Burbank.
I didn't go into. They have that Walmart had a supermarket section or a food section. I didn't go down those aisles at all. I can only imagine what's going on down there. But it was a little cheaper, but it's for 7 cents to drive to southern Kentucky just didn't seem, things were a few cents cheaper. Plus, I think Amazon is probably ultimately cheaper. Remember when people would shop at Amazon because Walmart was evil? And now I think...
Well, the thing is that, you see, Amazon's more efficient. So when I buy something from Walmart, I am destroying 14 people's lives. Yeah. From Amazon, I'm only destroying 11.
That's right. That's correct.
So, I don't feel as bad, actually.
That's right. I kind of missed that there was, at no point did I hear any speaker saying, attention to Walmart shoppers.
Blue light special, aisle 3.
I didn't, if there was going on. There were plenty of guns on the gun department. That I saw. That's probably when I thought, I'm leaving. I don't know. There were too many guns in the store and no one at the counter.
I know this is kind of sleight of hand,
yeah,
but the state with the most voters for Donald Trump is California.
Well, that's because the state with the most voters.
I understand that, but you have to understand is that
I know they were all shopping at this Walmart in Burbank.
But we
they had come in from who knows where.
I've said this before is that California used to be a pretty conservative state, and it's only since like Pete Wilson era that it's been solid blue. Yeah. But we produced Nixon,
Reagan.
Hoover, and Reagan as our presidents.
Warren Burger.
Yeah, California was pretty right wing for a long time.
But that was most of the people in this store were not. First of all, I don't know how they vote, but most of the people in this store were not born during the. It was women in their late 20s, early 30s. Somehow they managed to have 16, 18 children already, and they brought them all with them.
Wouldn't it be funny if you talk to them and like. They had a book right there, and it's like Jürgen Habermas or like Antonio Gramsci, some like sort of key anarchists or key communists, and then you're like, oh, never mind, these are all intellects.
That didn't seem to be what was going on there. There was a lot of spam buying,
and they're like, yeah, I'm a socialist, but I'm poor.
Well, yeah, I'm all for saving money. Mm-hmm. I just have never seen anything. Like that. Mm-hmm. But it was also really 100% white.
Oh, yeah.
Which was very surprising. Normally when I walk into a low-price store, people think they're either about to be sued or I'm the manager. So if I go into a low-price store, I get a lot of
Oh,
people.
especially in the valley, because the demographics of the valley are very minority white.
Yeah.
Although, as I pointed this thing out, is that there's really only two Walmarts on San Fernando Valley, the ugly side of the hill. There's one over like around, I guess, Van Nuys, and then there's one around Burbank. And so if you are from, there's some really white places like Santa Clarita.
Yeah.
And if you want to shop at Walmart, like that's where you'd go. And so, it's true that if I went to random part of North Hollywood and just went into random place, it's probably like small white minority.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about that entire area, we're talking, I don't even like millions of people,
I don't know.
So this is where they.
Again,
This is like
take
the
an
West
actual-
Hollywood of rednecks.
That's what it looked like. It looked like I didn't have a conversation with anyone, but it did look like it was redneck.
If you started,
which I didn't expect.
If you turned on your stereo and started line dancing in the parking lot,
been an earthquake.
There'd be a bunch of people
heavy
coming
rhythm
over
in there.
and just sort of like joining you and doing the
Achy
Breaky Heart, from like '93.
That's actually too mainstream. It's probably something else.
Yeah,
It was. I know I'm a little elitist.
So high class.
So high class. But you couldn't get, there were wide aisles, the carts were this big, and the women were even bigger. But again, that's...
Well, yeah, that's because that makes me aerodynamic as I go down through the aisle.
Hundreds of children. There were hundreds of children.
Well, I'm glad, Americans are having fewer children, so it's nice to see people are bucking the trend.
Why weren't these kids in school, pandemic or not?
Oh, I'm sure they all go to homeschool.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. They probably are homeschooled.
So I was trying to think of...
They had just gotten off charm school.
A Lucky Charm school. I was thinking about, it's funny because I make these terrible jokes and then I know that they're like cemented forever. So then when I hear them again, I'm like, why did I say that? And so we were trying to figure out a topic, or I was trying to figure out a topic for this week, and I went through many failed ones. But I've got one thing that might be interesting, is that I bought 2 snacks. So here's...
Oh, okay, let's try that. But while you're preparing that, you sent me that thing about the second assassination of Harry Truman, or second assassination attempt of Harry Truman.
Yeah,
And I had
never
known
seen
about
before.
that. And then, but what was interesting was I didn't know about the first one either. So I looked up the first one, and then it takes you in Wikipedia to a list of attempted assassinations of presidents.
Isn't it a fascinating
And there's
list?
hundreds of them, except some of them aren't real things. A guy sending a threatening letter to Bill Clinton is not really an assassination attempt. But it's a much longer list than I knew about.
Yeah,
I knew the 2 failed ones on Gerald Ford because they were
Did you know that there was one on George Herbert? After? I didn't know about that one.
No, I don't even remember that, and I was alive for it. So
that was fascinating.
Yeah,
and then that's where I cribbed that list from. Is that I was looking into that, and there was Emperor Hirohito. Which was the Japanese one. He had a bunch of assassination attempts in the 30s. They were very fascinating because, I don't think we really know a lot, at least as Westerners, about Asian politics.
No, certainly not in that era.
Well, here's the interesting
30s,
thing: is like when we talk about the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s. Like, if I am, let's say, an intellect or a scholar, or even a man in the street, they've probably heard fascism and Il Duce and Nazism and stuff like that, right? But even if you're let's say a scholarly person, about, I don't know, the failed French insurrections of 1934 or some more obscure thing, right? If I say, cool, what about South Korean independence politics? Do you know about those? And I don't think most people do. Maybe it's because a language barrier, you know what I mean?
Yeah, or they don't consider that something where Europeans look like them. Maybe they don't know anything about Africa either. The man on the street's not going to know anything about Africa or Asia. but they might know Italy, Great Britain, even Germany.
Sure, but like when you're talking about Asia, though, like significant things happen. Like we have like there's 3 communist countries there.
Yeah,
right. Can you name them?
I can indeed. North Korea, Vietnam, and
there's 4.
Cambodia.
Yeah. Well, there's China too.
Oh, and China.
Isn't Laos?
I'm not sure about Laos.
See, we don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought Laos was. And I had to up the numbers as I remembered more. Like even though like I've been trying to brush up on this stuff, I still don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing just how kind of we don't know about any of these things, right?
Yeah.
Or especially when we're talking about like how many Asian leaders can you name? Like
1.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mao Zedong or something. And it's like it's just interesting, just like how much of a black box that is. Even though it's so large and
inscrutable.
Yeah.
The mysteries of the Orient.
Oh, the reason was because I was trying to look into Japan right after the end of the war, like September through maybe June of 45 to 46, right? And it's tough because there's a lot of propaganda of that era, that makes you want to sort of think one way or another. And so whenever you look up the videos, like the path video or something like that, you'll be like, I don't know, like thousands of Allied troops march through the streets, and then they have like,
the newsreels.
Yeah, they have newsreels and they have well-dressed Japanese people waving them on and stuff like that. And you're like, okay, this is just a propaganda setup.
Yeah.
Like I'm not getting any sense of what life was like in post-war Japan after all of these cities were leveled and like they didn't have any water supply and they're running out of food.
They were completely disarmed. They didn't even have police at that point.
Right. And so, I was doing a lot of research and I was just super curious about that. Do you know that that's where ramen came out of?
Because it was a low-priced food?
Yeah. Oh. That's what, well, it was around beforehand. But what made it, okay, I'll get into the details of that, just so that people can't, I mean, nobody freaking watches this thing, but maybe 20 years from now.
Later tonight when I'm watching it.
Yeah, 20 years from now when I die in a crazy death and I became famous for that, and people would go through here, and the reporters are like, that's technically incorrect.
20 years from now when you die?
Well, yeah, I don't want to die too soon,
No, I was going to go 5, 6.
Okay, let's see. So, in early 1945, there were plans for effectively through more or less 1947 about the war. And somebody would say, well, no, this one was only known through like 1946. Yes, I know. Not for all projects, but some operations they had out until that long. And there was this one that they started around April called Operation Starvation. And that's what the name was. And the plan was to bomb all of the water repositories that would then lead to the crops so that they wouldn't be able to then irrigate the fields. And then this is what happened with Vietnam later on when they put all of that, when they decided to pollute the fields so they couldn't grow crops.
Yeah.
Same plan in Japan, but of course they didn't have the chemicals yet. So this was amazingly successful.
Pre-napalm.
Yeah, pre-napalm. So this is amazingly successful, and it led to perhaps 1 million people's deaths or whatever, right? And then there was a finally capitulation in September. But the plan was that by the time winter would come, 10 million people would be dead.
Would be starved to death.
Because they wouldn't be able to grow crops, and all the water would be gone. They're like, oh, shoot, we're supposed to be friends with them now. They don't have any of those things yet. What are we going to do? We actually don't want 10 million of your kids to die anymore.
Now we don't want them to die.
Yeah, and so what happened was that Americans shipped over they flooded the markets with wheat, and all they could to try to offset that. And as a result, people were like, well, what cheap stuff can I make with this? And one of the products out there that had been around for a while that wasn't really super popular was ramen. And so
flavor it with whatever else.
Yeah, you flavor it with whatever, and then get the hot
Salt.
water or whatever the thing is, right? And so it's super cheap to make, and and those cheap dishes plus us flooding the market. Yeah. But it's not really because we were the ones that messed up in the first place, right?
Well, there was a war on.
Well, yeah,
we were bombed.
But we had an intentional starvation plan that we had to call on.
Well, there was no. We were many attempts, different ways, ethical and unethical, to end the war. And
I
was one of them,
this,
which was everyone in that country dies. At the time, it seemed like a good idea. Even in retrospect, it's not a bad idea, which would probably work. Ramen went on to be very popular with college students who had about the same amount of money as the Japanese after the war.
And their apartments look the same.
Right. I think the mysteries of the Orient again. I know I mentioned this before, but I don't think I mentioned it on this, about an episode of To Tell the Truth from the 1970s. It was rerun. Maybe it was in color already, but it wasn't that modern. Let's say 1970.
Give a premise if you tell the truth for people who don't know.
To Tell the Truth is still on, so people do know.
Okay, cool.
You just don't have a television machine. And the imposter, there's a guy that really did this, or in this case, a woman that really did it, and two people that pretend to have done it, and they get asked questions by a celebrity panel, and they try to guess who's the one actually telling the truth.
And so it'd be something like saying, I am Larry Case, and I am a famous screenwriter, or whatever. And then he would stand up and say, I am Larry, and then we'd have to try to figure out who's who.
And then they'd say, when you worked at this place, who was starring in.
The interesting part about this is that the spoils are given evenly throughout all of the contestants. Yeah. And so it is within your interest to make it look like that you are not the real Larry Case. That's my interest to make it look like I am the real Larry Case. And so even though you say I can suss out a liar, it puts a new dynamic on it.
But it does say they refer to the real person's statement as an affidavit, and they say he's sworn to tell the truth.
Right.
So they at least go through the motions of saying he's going to tell the truth. And I can't say that anyone in the episodes I've ever seen has tanked it. So in this episode around 1970, the person, this celebrity that had done something, not celebrity, but this person that had done something amazing, she had been to China. That's it. She had been to China. She was there for 3 days, and she spoke on this panel, and the people explained to it as if they were experts. And so the questions were, what do they eat? What do they wear? As if she was there for 3 days. She had dinner with two people. And it was this, and we had some wine, and then we had rice, and there was fish, and it was presented as if that's what you have for dinner. Well, they have a glass of wine, and then they have some fish on top of some white rice, and then they take a walk through the garden as if that's what. Well, what do they wear? They wear a red dress with a hat because she was there for 3 days. She saw that, and she spoke as if those were the experts, and everyone was shaking their head as if that's it. That's the entire knowledge of China was this woman that had been there on a layover.
Do they speak English there?
I think that they would not have known in that era, they would not have known there were two Chinese languages. They would not have known Cantonese and Mandarin. They would have thought those were two different restaurants. They would not have known there were two languages.
There's many languages actually in China.
No, there's many dialects.
Yeah. No, there's many core languages in China.
But they would not have known. Yeah. That meant nothing to them. They spoke Chinese in China. That was it. Yeah. And that was it. Not as good as the one we can't mention about the guy that was misdiagnosed, which we can't say because it involves the use of a word we can't say. Maybe that's a different show.
What?
To Tell the Truth episode.
What are you talking about?
This is such a terrible word. It wasn't the same episode. It was a different episode. But someone on To Tell the Truth, or the person sworn to tell the truth, had as a child been misdiagnosed, again this is 1970, as, this was the acceptable word, as retarded. He had been misdiagnosed as retarded, which was the scientific word.
I'm done with the show, I'm sorry.
And he was sent to an institution, and some teacher there noticed he was okay, and eventually he was reanalyzed and he was taken out and he went to a regular high school and he graduated high school and he went to a real college and now he has a job. And so every one of the questions, this is horrible, of these actual celebrities said, well, when they thought you were retarded, well, and then there's an actual question where he's asked, didn't the other retards notice that you were...
No, they wouldn't. What? How would they do that?
But it's just as horrible. Every time they said the word, it's started to laugh. Anyway, that has nothing to do with China.
It's not terrible. It's actually I want to go look up the episode.
It was the acceptable word then. It was the polite word. I think the impolite word would have been crazy or stupid or something. And the polite word was that.
Yeah, he said, "Oh, no, not the retard sit except for the midget." Actually,
yeah, right. Which one of you is a midget? Will the real midget please stand up? I am standing. That would be all right. Now,
all right.
Now there's going to get. This is permanently. You were worried about something that was on your permanently.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to move to BitChute next week.
Going to move to Gab.
Speaking of racist things, I have this thing which. The nice thing about being Japanese is that now you can write vertically and nobody actually questions you.
Well, let me read this to you. Oh, chocolate wafers.
Oh, wow, you're pretty good. But they're actually apple flavored.
Oh, okay. Oh,
anyway,
I was reading it upside down. That's what happened. I was reading it in Chinese.
Well, we'd like to. Okay, so
it actually almost looks like letters here.
That's pretty good. Okay, so I got that, and then I have oatmeal coffee cracker.
Let me translate what this one says. This says, this is apricot pastries. That's what the translation is. It's one. Is this going to be one big cracker?
This is not plural.
It's not plural.
But it also says something like it made a claim here that coffee and oatmeal, good partner, more healthy. So I wanted to test their claim. What country did you
get that in? What Walmart did you get this in?
This is from Murukai. But you know what I like about this is that in America they say this is suggested serving.
Yeah.
Over there they suggested a little bit more forcefully by doing this. They actually individually wrap them in a per servings basis.
Well, that's how you're putting your kid's lunch, where he also has
one of
apple
these
cookies and a little cup of coffee, I suppose.
So would you like to have some oatmeal coffee cracker, or would you like to have one of these apple cookies? Which one do you want?
Let's try the. We can try the oatmeal. Well, it doesn't matter.
So take one.
You've opened this. All right.
Take one. Yeah, but of course I had one.
First? Oh, and you're still alive? Then I'm all right. All right. Oh, they're soft. They're like
they look like Moki bars, don't they?
Yeah, it's like marshmallows. Here we go.
It's not bad. It's just kind of. It's like a donut almost.
Yeah, you know what? It's not as sweet as American.
Nothing is. Like even regular bread is sweet in the U.S.
It's not full sugar. I like this better.
Yeah.
This would probably be very good with coffee.
No, I have some.
Oh, no, I'm good.
I'm not offering to you.
It's 4 a.m. These are pretty good, actually. These are nice. Where'd you get these?
Murukai on Pico and Bundy.
Is it an ethnic food store?
Yeah, it's Japanese.
Is this Japanese?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Oh, but it's all in English.
Yeah.
Or broken English, but English never.
Yeah, there's 3 Japanese grocery stores on the west side.
Oh.
This is right there. Sure, yeah.
Is this the weight or the price?
I don't. 15 yen would be about 15 cents or something like that. I think it's the count, actually. I think it's 15 pieces.
15 pieces.
Mm-hmm.
How much was it, American money?
$3, $4
maybe.
maybe.
So that's about right?
Yeah, it's not crazy. Yeah. So maybe we can split one of these cracker things.
Let's try. This is one cracker.
No. It's a pack. So
it's a pack.
It's
so
4 or so.
This. Have you tried this yet?
Yeah, I did.
Oh.
Try one of each. They're both mild. And so it's like nothing
I guess they don't
crazy.
have a lot of sweets in, right? They don't do a lot of sweets in
No, even their food is polite.
First it bows. And is this going to be sweet or savory? Oh,
a
I'll
little
have
of
to
both.
find out myself.
I think it's 4 crackers.
It's hot. It's spicy. It's and most of it's already on my pants.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's 5 actually. It's 5. It's just like a saltine almost.
It's a graham cracker without sugar.
Yeah.
Also not bad.
Yeah, they're both okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you a pack of each. It's okay.
Lovely.
No.
No, it's pretty good. I think they have something going. Mm-hmm. Unlike some other stuff we've tasted in the past. What was the thing? And that was an American, the coffee cranberry one that tasted like someone put cigarettes out in the coffee
But we got it for free though. So
we got it for free. It was
by Ocean Spray.
Ocean Spray.
You brought it up. This would be the 3rd time we've brought it up so far.
Yeah, I know, but it was awful. Mm-hmm. And this is good. We have to leave the country to get good food.
Well, when I say this is the 3rd time you brought it up, you should have said, it's been a year, Chris. Come on.
I bet you could get, I bet that cranberry coffee, Ocean Spray cranberry coffee, flies off the shelves at the Walmart in Burbank.
They just know
it's already had a cigarette put out in it. You don't have to do it yourself.
Yeah, I want to have something as nasty as the people there. So I explored a lot of topics this week, but I found nothing that I wanted to take a deep dive into. So, yeah, I found that one, and then I found this fascinating article about this woman that was. Remember, and you said, "Is this a topic?" And I said, "No, I don't know enough about it." No. Remember, it was earlier today. It was the Pentecostalists.
Yes. Oh, but
wasn't it? Have you read that story before?
I read it. I read what you sent me. But
have you ever heard that story before?
I had heard it, but the only thing I've seen in depth is the Perry Mason, the modern HBO Perry Mason version. Do
you want to do the synopsis?
No, you go ahead.
No, I want to hear you do your job. Come on.
Well, I can tell you the Perry Mason.
No, don't give me the Perry Mason. Give me the Wikipedia. Give me the real deal.
Amy Semple McPherson, who was a famous evangelist.
But this is
in
like
Los Angeles.
But this is like before TV and radio.
She was radio. She was on radio.
Right, but this happened in like 1926 or so. So this happened
before she was on the radio, but she eventually became. And she was as close to God as you know.
Super big deal back then.
Yeah,
like a Billy Graham.
She disappeared for a few weeks, and there was a discussion.
But you didn't say. Okay, so she went to go swimming in Venice Beach.
Yeah,
and that was the last time that she was seen. So there was a theory that she had drowned in the ocean, and there were a bunch of people that would like go out there in boats to try to, people would volunteer and they would like wait by the seashore to try to see like if they had found anything. And so they were looking for weeks, right? And then there was all of these sightings of her, perhaps, so up to 15 in 1 week in Canada, all over the place, right? But then about a month and a half later, what happens to her?
Well, she reappears.
But you have to talk about
well, I think we're looking at different
things.
things.
You do this thing professionally? Come
on.
What about this? Hell?
My favorite part about this is the charlatan
aspect. You can't.
The charlatan aspect.
You're so yeah, but your storytelling sucks.
Well,
no.
This afternoon when you
me too.
Oh, all right. Then
but she stumbled out of the desert in Mexico a couple weeks later. So what happened was that she went in for a swim. She disappeared for weeks. There were sightings of her everywhere. People took her as dead, and there were large rewards by her family members. And then she stumbles out of the desert in Mexico, saying that she escaped some captors, and that she was kidnapped. And she gave a story about how she was on the beach. Somebody asked her to come and help pray for their child or something like that. And then they took her, and then they had her against her will, and moved her to various safe houses until she was down there in Mexico. And somehow she ended up with like a can to sort of tear off her rope, and then she then rummaged through the desert or whatever, and she said who she was, and people didn't believe her, and then they had to bring people in like by a train in order to authenticate who she.
The reason I'm would tell the story differently is because
there's a big deal, but we're going to get to it.
Right.
You have to.
No, I was going to tell it in the opposite direction. Go ahead.
No, that's not right.
Oh,
like you're saying and then he said this. What So two people walk into a bar. You're giving the cart before the horse.
Go ahead.
What's wrong with you?
Go ahead.
Seriously, go back to NYU. So, anyway. She ends up, and so people are like, oh my God, this is terrible. These people kidnapped you? This is awful. Who are they? And then she was like, I don't really know. And they're like, no, we're going to find you. This is terrible. You're kidnapped. We're going to bring them to trial. All these things like this. Where was the cabin at? This is awful. We're going to go find it. We're going to get all this evidence. And then she's like, well, it's kind of over here somewhere. They're like, cool. We'll send out all of our search teams, and we'll go find that cabin. We'll go sweep it up for fingerprints. We'll do everything. And then they said, we didn't find a cabin. We didn't see anything. And then they're like, how long were you in the desert for? How much did you walk? I don't know, maybe 20 miles. Oh my God, it was 120 degrees that day. How did you survive? And then they look at the pictures and then they're like, her clothes weren't that torn.
She's not sunburned.
She's not very sunburned. And then they looked at her medical record. She wasn't dehydrated, right? And so it came out. So now you can do your part that it was a hoax.
Of course it was a hoax. And it didn't stop her from being famous because her believers wanted to believe this story, even though it was so obviously phony.
What had really happened is that she was cheating on her husband.
Yes.
And she was with another man at Carmel by the Sea up in Northern California. But that was a place where nobody had reported a sighting of her. And there was like one or two people who said that they had seen her. Well, not only, okay, here's the thing, is that this was the trial of the century, if you will.
Yes.
So long court cases. And as far as I can tell, there is still no definitive answer. She went to her death claiming, no, I was not at Carmel by the Sea. She never admitted.
They were raising so much money off of her. There apparently was pressure for her to just keep telling the story, even from her family, from the church, which was a business, not a church. And so supposedly at one point she wanted to actually come clean. This will cost us millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. And she not only did she claim to the end, but she became more famous. When radio started, she became the first of the. It was radio. The first of these charlatans.
I think Charles Coughlin kind of person. Yeah.
Right. The first of these charlatans that would raise money by claiming to help people, cure people on the radio, and she was just too valuable a commodity. And she didn't want to ever do this. She didn't want to do it from the beginning. This was forced by her mother, and it was discussed as the business. You're going to be an evangelist, and we're going to raise some money, and you're going to talk to God, and you're going to be, the equivalent of a psychic now. And the believers just were going to believe her no matter what happened.
But you know what this kind of reminds me of? I'm trying to look up the name right now.
Donald Trump?
No. It reminds me of, because all this happened in Southern California.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of Jack Parsons, founder of JPL.
No, I don't know.
So Jack Parsons was a very brilliant man, but he was also a Satanist and an occult guy. And he founded JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and he was a great scientist there. But he was also ran this crazy house where like you had free love and all these weird rituals were going down out in Pasadena. And he ended up having somebody over at that house who is much more famous than Jack Parsons right now. It's the guy that founded Scientology. Lived at his house. What's his name?
Yeah, L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, Mr. L. Ron Hubbard lived over there. And then like stole Jack Parsons' girlfriend from him, and all this
and
crazy
his act.
all this crazy stuff happened. And yeah, it's this kind of, and it adds into the whole sort of who was it? It was it Hubble also that was like kind of wacky. Is that there was this whole sort of occult weirdness to Southern California in the early 1900s. And it's basically like where all of the sort of the Aleister Crowley kind of people went. And so when I read this story of the McPherson thing, of how she like, faked a kidnapping into Mexico, and then she was really like, ran off to something. It fit a piece.
I think that
all the other weirdness.
I think that she never faked it. I think she ran off with her, whoever this guy was, and the rest of the firm, as they might call it, faked her death, and faked the kidnapping and told her what to say. I think she just ran off with this guy, thinking she'll never have to come back.
So when I read that, I was like, "This is a great story. There's got to be a good movie about this."
There was one.
There was a 2019 movie.
Yeah.
But it was supposedly not very good.
And they did the story on HBO. Yeah.
I'm really disappointed by, I don't know what it is, because you look at things like The Black Dahlia, which is Elizabeth Short, right? And for people who don't know, it's this horrific murder that happened in, I think it was during World War II or shortly thereafter. It was in the 40s somewhere. And it was a woman who was maybe 22 or 23. She was really young. And she was a waitress. And she had a normal life, nothing crazy. She clocked out of work. And she said bye to her friend. And then she was gone forever. And a few days later, they found a body in a ravine down near Lamar Park of this like really sort of emaciated corpse that had been like chopped and cut and had a Glasgow smile from like ear to ear. Yeah. And it was Elizabeth Short. And like this horrific murder. It was so horrific that they had that some of the photographs they didn't release till like the 90s because they thought that like society would like pearl clutch over it. It was that terrible. And the thing is that like usually if that kind of stuff happens and you have a psycho, it happens more than once, right? It's some wacko like the Zodiac killer, right, who ends up killing multiple people. Or you have somebody who is like so deep in with shit that, they kind of deserve it, right? Like they have all these like crazy mob connections or something like that. But this is an instance where they haven't been able to connect it with anybody else, and they haven't been able to find a motive for this terrible death. So it's a very fascinating story. And there's been a couple movies on it, and they're all terrible.
Yeah. Because there's no, it's hard to do the story when there really is no ending. Any ending is going to be fictional.
But I understand that, and so so even if you have the world of fiction in front of you, and you can say this is based roughly on the Black Dahlia murder, that's a great framework for what happened in the 24 hours in between her being normal and her ending up at this place, right? You can do whatever you want there.
But you'd have to make that part up.
Sure.
It's very hard to pull off that story. The only person that I think ever was able to do it was Oliver Stone with JFK. Pulling off a real event and presenting it as if here's the facts. Here's how I've said the facts. But normally when you take a story with no
right, but
truth
but
to
Oliver
it,
Stone's JFK was was not something that he made up. It was based upon conspiracy theories and other people that purported saying that this was true at the time. He
managed to tell a story based on what he believed or presented to
but he didn't inject any fiction there. He took other people's texts, whether it's fiction or not, it doesn't matter, and then he made a narrative out of it.
I don't think that exists with with Elizabeth Short. I don't think that exists yet. I don't think that kind of accepted theory of what really happened.
I understand,
exists.
But what I'm saying is that, like, couldn't I do something? Here's an instance. Is saying something like it happened right around the time when they were reforming Hollywood ownership, and they were about to break up the studio system, right? And back then, essentially, the studios had a vertical monopoly. They owned the theaters, and they were able to do something called blockbusting, which is where the term blockbuster came from, is saying, like, if you want to have this hit movie, then you have to also buy these crappy movies with it as an entire block.
Even before that, they own the theaters, they own the product they put in the theaters, so independent theaters had very little chance of getting those.
But if you're like a Laemmle,
unless they gave in and said, okay, and we'll take the bad movies too.
And it was this really unfair system that really sort of hurt people. Not only that, but then people were contracted with the studios like slaves too.
Well, they were handsomely paid, but they could work at one studio. Your contract was to make movies for Warner Brothers.
Right, it was an independent and so all of this was going to change in about 1947, right? Right about the time that Elizabeth Short was murdered. So, if you wanted to, you could connect the two things.
You could absolutely create a story with that, but you'd be the first one to connect that.
I understand that.
So it's not like with JFK, it was
but isn't it the task of a fiction writer?
Right. But you'd be what JFK did.
Nobody believes Harry Potter, right?
But what Oliver Stone did is he took all of the accepted rumors and theories that people had heard in some way and put them together. There aren't enough of that. You'd be starting with a blank page, other than she was alive and then she was dead.
Right.
But that's what people have tried to do, and they've
But if you look at if you look at Aaron Burr, I'm sorry, not Aaron. If you look at Lincoln, 1876, and this is done by that. Who is that? Gore Vidal. He wrote those 4 historical books, right? Classic sort of works. Burr,
Lincoln.
And 1876, and then he wrote another one. But those are half fiction, half real. He put sort of stories in there.
That's setting his story in an actual time, as if these people existed in that era under those conditions. This is taking a famous thing, and there hasn't been. I think that's what's holding up a good story for Elizabeth Short, is there hasn't been enough of a mythology created around it yet. So no one can take all of that mythology and present it. You'd have to do a historical novel of someone being killed. The only facts that exist are she was alive and she's dead, and there's no other mythology. There's no people that have always heard it was the Catholic Church.
But she worked at a restaurant that's frequented by Hollywood elites.
But what would be the? I mean, now you'd have to work out a story, but it's not.
But what I'm saying is that this is what conspiracy theorists do.
No,
right?
I know, but
is that they look at the 9/11 flight logs, and all of a sudden they come up with like the most elaborate stories.
Absolutely, but I also don't think that the poor woman. I'm sorry she was killed, but she wasn't the president. It didn't blow up the World Trade Center.
But this is why I think that these things are the most fascinating stuff to work with. Like I am much more interested in a story about the failed assassination of Ronald Reagan with John Hinckley, right, than I am about JFK, because it just looks more hidden and deep and like this kind of like more tenuous and more imaginary. And if somebody said, "Oh yeah, her fascination with that lesbian actress, what's her face?
Jodie
Foster, is all nonsense, and it was all a cover,
Yeah.
and that he was really working for the Bush family, or whatever, right? And you just make these things up, and you draw, like, that would be super fascinating.
But again, it's not existing mythology. It's something you'd be creating.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that I find that to be, like, a made-up story about that to be far more intense, or about the attempted assassination of Gerald Ford. There were like 2 of them, right?
Yeah. There were 2.
They were both like lame ones too.
Yeah.
And like that is better news to me than like Hitler escaped down to Brazil or whatever it is, right? Like, yeah, okay, fine, I've heard that one before, right? Or if she said there was no Hitler,
Right.
like Hitler never existed. Now that would be great.
There were people that used to say Hitler and Jack the Ripper were the same person.
Mm-hmm.
That was a rumor that went on at the time.
Yeah, Hitler was fake. It was always an actor, and he used different actors. And they had Hitler's dying left and right because he was actually assassinated multiple times.
Consistently, people were always killing Hitler.
Right. and so he was killed multiple times, but they always had another person, another rube to sort of put up there.
That's why they had so many things. Once you saw the mustache and the thing, you were
right,
ready.
and he knew it was. Right, exactly. See, This is a much better story, of how he, it was Himmler's, when he talks about like the great lie, like that's what he's talking about, is that the leader is actually doesn't exist, right?
I wonder if that actually has ever happened. There's a movie, Dave, where they replace the president with a lookalike because he's sick.
Yeah, there was a movie.
It's a good movie.
But there was a good movie about that called Moon in 2009. You ever see that one?
No.
So I'm gonna spoil it for you. Then we'll be done.
Okay.
So in the movie Moon, it's about the future, and it's in a world where like the energy crisis is solved, and you have to mine the moon in order to get this energy and send it back to Earth. But it's very dangerous. They only have one person up there, and the whole point of the movie, and this is what you find out 45 minutes in. Now I'm putting the cart in front of the horse. Is that they found one person, they cloned them. Because it's so dangerous that the person constantly dies. And so then he has an assistant robot. So whenever the person dies of radiation or from a broken machine, then they go down to the repository of clones, and then they bring one up.
Right.
And then they put him in there. And then they give him the same spiel every time, like, oh, no, the radio tower's down, it's almost Christmas, whatever it is, right? In the same narrative form. And then he goes and works for a couple weeks. But the whole point is, or the whole plot here is that one time they thought that he was dead, and he wasn't, and he made it back. Oh. And then you have 2 of them there, and then they figure it out.
They have to kill one?
No.
All
right. One of them ends up going back to Earth and saying, like, and saying, what, I don't know. It was made in 2009, like not 1950, right? Like there's a little bit of like anti-corporatist kind of stint to it still. So that's no, we have some time.
Do we have some time?
We do. Remember, I started that early this time.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I would think so. Yeah, I've long thought that Elizabeth Short and Elvis story would be good.
There are existing rumors about Elvis. There's
right, but they all suck.
Well, but at least that's a jumping off point that people will recognize.
Right,
Elvis not dead has been the rumor since the moment he died.
But like I was working on an Elvis story, and I want to get back to. Yeah. Did I ever tell you my Elvis story? No. So in mine, basically, what happens is that he gets really into the occult, which is absolutely true, and I talked about this in one of my episodes, just to prove you don't watch all of them. And then he ends up escaping down to like Mexico, where he lives the life of like a hippie artist, where he doesn't want to do pop music anymore. He doesn't want the celebrity thing. And then he just lives off grid, like one of the Back to Earthers, which was a popular movement back in the 70s, right? And so you or Back to the Land, whatever, the Landers, whatever. And so it really works well because it works within the milieu of kind of the semi-cult, semi-off-grid, weird hippiness that he actually had part of. And yeah, so that's the idea for mine.
Yeah.
There is no comeback. He never wants to sing again.
And so the reason he faked his death was because he doesn't want to sing.
Well,
he doesn't
the reason he faked his death was because he genuinely wanted to kill Elvis Presley.
Oh, and he went. Oh,
he wanted to kill the person inside of him. Right.
Oh,
and so he wanted. So he did a ceremonial death of himself in order to be reborn as his new identity. Right. Very Cordish, right? So that would be my story, which is a different take than what you see, because all the other ones are lame. I think that one's really sort of interesting.
Right. That he works in the 7-Eleven is a.
It's
There's
stupid.
no way to go with that.
Yeah.
So you have come up with something more interesting.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I need to do my own alternative history ones. You know. Yeah.
Like you are a regular Gore Vidal. So.
Really?
What a historic novel, but about the 70s.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That is historic to me.
1885.
Right.
Yeah.
That is good. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe one day. I've started a few of these. I just never finished them. You know, that's the problem. Do you have a lot of scripts that you started and haven't finished?
No, I eventually get to the end of it, but then maybe then it just stays on my computer.
Oh well.
I've had ideas I never went back to. Outlines, but once I start to write a script, I usually take it to the end.
Is there something that you've been meaning to write for a while that you just haven't done yet?
Yes, there's always that.
Mm-hmm. Can you give me the premise?
No.
I
have a true story that, but I can't find a way to make it interesting enough.
Every now and then I send you things I think would make good ideas. Right.
But and this is one of those. But I haven't found a way to make it interesting enough yet.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I maybe there. You know, I was thinking about having one where you have this crazy celebrity that becomes a president, and he's completely
incompetent. That's
incompetent.
happened more than once, unfortunately.
Right, and then he loses his re-election campaign, but he can't admit it to himself. Yeah. Oh. There is one thing that happened in the past 2 weeks. There was this weird conspiracy going around about how Joe Biden was on a green screen. Did you see this thing?
Oh, no.
Oh.
Is this a QAnon thing?
Because he did an interview in a South Lawn.
Yeah.
And it looks weird. Because it looks like that his hand goes in front of a microphone, then behind it or something. It's a weird optical illusion.
Yeah.
But like, you can see it from different angles that like it's real. And then the lighting looks weird, but it's only because they're using like the professional high-grade cameras.
Yeah.
And so and it's an overcast day and it doesn't really work that well. And you can find other people with professional high-grade cameras on an overcast day and it looks weird.
Yeah.
Like you can see the same weirdness if you look at the same conditions. It's just an illusion, but it does look fake. Right. And so it's so interesting because these people genuinely believe, I know it's fake. It's fake. You know, and that's their big deal right now. Is that, you know, when they can't find a controversy, they make one up in their head, they believe it's real, and then they're outraged by it.
Right.
That's a Rush Limbaugh technique.
Thing, yes.
Right?
Right. Say something happened and be outright. Right. These are the same people, of course, except not as violently, that believe that the moon landing was staged in a.
I heard a great sort of
stage in Burbank that's now a Walmart.
Yes, true. I heard a great multi-hour thing on Rush Limbaugh this week, and
he's dead, you know.
The whole premise of it was that it was always an act to him.
Yeah.
And he was upfront with it. Because he started as a DJ.
Then he was a literal carnival barker.
And then what he did was he did the initial act as a parody of that act because he wasn't political before.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Oh, what would happen if I do this super extreme thing right here?" You know, and then it turned out that people loved it,
bought into
it, and they didn't know it was part of the joke. And the idea is that eventually, like maybe he believed it.
Did he start to believe it because he accepted the Presidential Medal of Freedom from someone even more insane?
I mean, it's a grift at the end, right? But he wasn't political. I don't think he was like secretly like a leftist. I think that maybe he didn't care as much as he acted.
It was about, like Fox News, it's about
the
money.
He had $500 million at the end, right?
Yeah.
Right?
It's about the fame and the money. And
like, if he was I mean, there's a bunch of people.
Maybe with that much adoration, you start to believe it.
There's a bunch of people on the internet that do it for free.
Yeah.
But, you know.
And better.
Yeah, he negotiated the $400 million contract, or else he would stop.
Yeah,
so obviously he doesn't care about it that much.
But he was also a convicted drug dealer, and he had been arrested.
Oh, that's the other thing, is that like he was so anti-drug on his show, but he was doing drugs the entire time.
Right.
And not only that, but
he was convicted, but didn't have to go to jail because he's white.
When you listen to like the people that were involved with him, it sounds like he was a smuggler. Yeah. Like they're like, I don't know how
That's
one person could consume that much.
Where he was sending out his cleaning lady to get more drugs. Yeah, he was such an addict.
It was nuts.
It well exceeded the threshold to be called trafficking.
It was like Michael Jackson level. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, I think that's better.
All right, the time is up.
I mean, I always like to have a Michael Jackson joke.
You what?
I always like to have a Michael Jackson joke.
You always like to close on the Michael Jackson joke.